The great philosopher Aristotle once said, "The aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance." A phrase I wholeheartedly agree with. So today on Consoletronix, I'll be looking at some of the artistic achievements that adorn the Nintendo Entertainment System. But before I begin, can I just say that as a child growing up in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, I owned a Commodore Plus 4 and Sega Master System, while many of my friends had ZX Spectrums, Commodore 64s and Amigas. Video games and systems to play them on were plentiful, so it always boggled my young mind why American audiences tolerated the domination and lack of variety afforded by Nintendo. Maybe it was down to shady business practices on the part of the Japanese giant, or perhaps it was some sort of American rite of passage where you couldn't become a man unless you completed Bayou Billy. But I digress. The first item on our agenda is the 1987 home conversion of the popular SNK arcade game Athena. Ah yes, this is a splendid rendition of the goddess of Greek and Roman mythology. Look at her poise as she stands there resplendent in her glory, surrounded by her immortal kin. Next we shall see the Japanese cover. Yeah, I think something got lost in translation. The little fella in the blue box clearly wants no part of this debacle either, and while she might have a vacant, gormless expression upon her boat race, I do so admire her tiny hands, because the smaller a lady's grip, the bigger my cock looks in comparison. And the next piece of objet d'art is Downtown Neketsu Monogatari, a game that I believe enjoyed tremendous success here in the UK under the title Renegade, and I have absolutely no qualms with this image as it clearly represents the squashed down super deformed graphics you could expect to see on your NES system, much like Double Dragon. And the American design presents a very different scene as we see two chaps who are clearly too old to be high schoolers and sporting attire that looks like they just walked off the set of a Persil commercial. And why does the bloke on the right looks like he's got a bit of metal lodged in his incredibly flat head? Bloody hell, I could rest my cup of coffee atop that bonce. They're still producing these Kunio-kun games in Japan, I believe. But enough of this. Next we go to Alien Syndrome, a 1988 Sega arcade game running on Nintendo hardware? My, how things have come full circle. This image is framed in a fleece 8-year-old boys out of their pocket money motif by displaying a femme fatale, big lasers, and the promise of turning dreary gunmetal grey corridors into colourful alien blood and brain matter soaked spectacles. Very nice. And the Japanese cover seems to be giving prominence to a student of the Stevie Wonder school of alien extermination, as all the action seems to be taking place behind him as he shoots impotently into the void at absolutely nothing. But we put aside our modern weaponry to go back to simpler times. Ah, the samurai, a staple of video games, both then and now. This is The Legend of Kage. No doubt it is a child-friendly retelling of a popular folk myth from the land of the rising sun. This cover screams action and peril. The US offering, on the other hand, seems to be going down the minimalist path, as we seem to be looking at a domestic scene where a young lady is asking her boyfriend if he remembered to lock the door when they left the house. And as we can see here, he's struggling to think of anything, so clearly he hasn't, so I think he's going to be sleeping on the couch for the next few nights. But why am I only looking at US and Japanese covers? What about us in the old world? What did we get? Well, here's Kage again, this time in his Commodore 64 form, and this time our hero is now charging into battle with little more than his sock suspenders for protection. And speaking of going to war ill-prepared, we have Ikari Warriors, where we see two beefcakes who are clearly overcompensating for something with their big muscles. Now, I was always told if you can't think of something to say about an image, you should always let it speak for itself. So I find it quite telling that one of the most prominent things you see here is the word cack. And this is the American take on that arcade classic. Now, I never attended military school, so you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I always believed that the participants in the theatre of war did so with their clothes on. but we haven't the time to discuss homoerotic fantasies supplied by Nintendo. Instead, we're gonna look at a Capcom classic, Rockman. Now, while Capsule Computers may have crafted one of the finest video games of the age, why call him Rockman when even the title of the game is metallic? Well, someone whose opinion I trust once told me that it's because at this time, video games were seen as the new rock and roll. Me, however, I think it's some English nonsense that got lucky. I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Yes, dear listeners, as offended as our modern eyes may be, in the latter half of the last century, this grotesque imagery sold like hotcakes, proving, as if more proof was needed, that the 1980s was truly bereft of taste. But what about us in Europe? Were we spared this horror? Were we fuck? As laughably retarded as this image is still Turner Prize winning material when placed alongside the abhorrent American cover. Someone actually got paid to draw this, and someone else gave it the okay to send it to the printers, and they should never, never be allowed to forget that. And last, but by no means least, we have Super Robot Soul Brain, a fantastic action romp based upon a Japanese tokusatsu TV show, and dare I say it, one of the best hidden gems on the system. And now we discover why it's been hidden from view for so long with this Western interpretation of a subject they clearly don't understand. Shame on you, Jellico. Shame on you. But before I bid you all bonjour, what other systems would you like me to cover next? SNES, Mega Drive, Saturn, Spectrum? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm looking to upload more videos more often, so hopefully you'll all see me again very soon. So thank you all for watching, and until the next time, goodbye.